Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. We have talked in this show before about what does it mean to be an administrator in higher education. What does it mean to benefit students by managing educational programs and helping students to graduate and achieve careers. But what does it mean to be the president of a university or of a community college? Well, today we had the honor to have with us Dr. Christal Albreicht. And she's the president of the Alvin Community College here in Texas, Houston metropolitan area. And she's going to be telling us in simple terms, what does it mean to be the president of a higher ed institution? Christal, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Antonio.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why don't we start by letting you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of letting them know, how do you get to where you are in your career right now?
Well, it's really an interesting question because probably like many educational administrators that you interview, they probably didn't plan to be here.
Exactly.
I didn't start out to be here. I started out in a very different place. I was actually a clinical microbiologist.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of days with my eyes here in a microscope and in small laboratories with limited interaction with individuals. So I'm in a very different place now.
Wow.
And how the short story of how I got here was because of that job. A local community college called me. They were short a faculty member.
Okay.
And they said, would you like to come and teach? It's just 2 nights a week. And so I did that and I got hooked. And I loved it. I really enjoyed working with the students. And I had students come through my lab, as part of an internship.
Okay.
And so I liked sitting with them and explaining the real world side of things away from the textbooks. So anyway, I got into the teaching and then I loved that at a community college. And then decided that was probably going to be my career.
Wow, that is fantastic. And after that, once you become a professor there, you continued your master?
Yes, a master's degree, and then after I did my master's, I thought, I'll take a little break, because I had family as well, I had children. And
life happens.
Yeah, life happens, yeah. I had a master's degree, then I had my third child, and then a subsequent fourth. But I worked my way up through the educational system,
Okay.
and then also it was a fairly traditional course of progression because I went to an associate dean position and kind of jumped from that to a vice president, and then had 2 campus presidencies and now this college presidency.
So that's fantastic. Well, it's a testimony for ladies out there who have families that it is possible to continue your career.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you talk about can you have it all? You can have it all. Sometimes you don't necessarily want it all, but
Exactly.
you can have it all for sure. And especially, and my husband was in the business too, education business. So we both, were working very hard along the same paths while raising a family.
That is fantastic. That is awesome. Great combination. Now, what about your job though? What about being the president of a community college? And we'll get into the role of community colleges a little later. But in terms of your job, because we may have a lot of students, a lot of current professors, even higher ed administrators, who may be wondering what does it mean to be the president of a community college? What does a day by day look like? In terms of your job.
So okay, let me try to answer that from a few different perspectives.
Okay.
So as the president of the community college, I'm really in charge of the day-to-day operations of the college, the overall strategic planning as well as the day-to-day operations. But my board, I report to a board. I have 9 elected officials to whom I report, and they are a board of regents, and they are to set the policies that guide the day-to-day operations. So I work closely, especially with my board chair and my board officers, to help decide what the best policy should be that makes it easier to operate the college. So I'm responsible to 9 bosses. So that makes life interesting sometimes. So day to day, I mean, it's probably like many administrators. You can look back at my desk there and you can see I have a whole list of things I need to do. And, they're prioritized and, some of them are perhaps more critical than others. in terms of their urgency. And, I may get to those today, or I may have something that pops up, like today where we're heat challenged across the campus today, so we've been busy working with the engineers on that. So, you just never know, but every day is different, of course, as with many jobs at the administrative level. But, usually the interactions, I have a wonderful team of people with whom I work, and I meet with them and see them and interact with them daily.
You have your cabinet members.
We call it our executive leadership team, ELT, that's what we call it. And it's composed of the vice presidents, Vice President of Instruction, Vice President of Student Services, Vice President of Admin Services, and then Executive Director of HR, Executive Director of Continuing Education and Workforce Development, and then Assistant to the President / Director of Development. So there's those 6 people who are, I count on them tremendously. They are all experts in their field, and together we meet every week, and then I meet with each of them individually as well. So they are the people that really help drive the agenda for what we do at the college.
That is fantastic. Now, you mentioned something that is really interesting that probably students and current administrators may wonder, because we have the luxury to have you today in the show, and you have been present in other institutions. What about those institutions that you don't have a board? I mean, how's that dynamic from your perspective in terms of accountability? Because right now you like you say, right? I mean, you have 9 different stakeholders that you have to report, and that should consume a big part of your job, because you have to keep them informed and all that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that your team helped you, of course, to have that relationship more fluent. But what about when you don't have that? I mean, what other situations you have had where you have to report, I guess, to a chancellor or
Exactly. And that's something that when I'm asked by people who I mentor who want to become presidents, they ask me that question: should I try for a job where I report directly to a board, or should I go for something more like a multi-campus or multi-college district where I report to a chancellor, where there's that buffer between myself and the board? And so, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why I originally took the path most of the way through my career of working in a large campus system. All the campuses that I worked at were very large, multi-campus, lots of centers, and a report to the chancellor.
When we talk about large, for our students who have no idea about numbers, we're talking about how many students, more or less?
So I worked at campuses that ranged from 35,000 students up to about 85,000 students. And so now I have just under 6,000 students.
6,000.
So,
is it a big difference managing?
I love that question, because it's a difference, and I'll tell you why. I purposely targeted to take a smaller college for my first real college presidency reporting to a board, because I thought I'll start small. Maybe it'll be less challenging, and less employees, less students. And really, what I have found is that, generally speaking, when you work for a small college, you're working for a less resourced college. Exactly. And so the resources that you may have been accustomed to when you worked at those 35,000, 45,000, 85,000 student colleges are not there, and the staff is not there. You have many staff that are wearing more than one hat.
Exactly.
And so you don't have a full office that's dedicated to doing your Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on College Accreditation. You have to take from other people that already have other jobs, and they take on that role, and that happens across the campus. So I would say think about that, because sometimes smaller can be even more difficult than large.
And that's kind of similar to school districts as well, because I can see in small school districts, different stakeholders have to wear several hats. Like HR, for example, you have to do recruiting, you have to do compensation, you have to do payroll, you have to do many things. When you're in small districts, you don't have that many resources that you can have in a large context. That's really interesting.
I agree, and I see that too, because we work with several different school districts here at Alvin Community College, and I see the very small, and I see they struggle. and then I see some of the larger ones, and that they have a little more resources to work with.
Now, what about what in your opinion, what are the keys to have a successful relationship with 9 board members? Because 9 board members is a lot. Usually, for example, in school districts, you have 7 board members. So 9 stakeholders you have to keep informed. In your opinion, what are the keys for future community college presidents or university presidents who have to deal with the board? In your opinion, what are the keys to have a fluent and a successful relationship with them?
Well, that's still a work in progress for me, because I think, I've been president here 4.5 years, and so I'm constantly working on it. And then every 2 years we have an election, and so you may have some turnover. But I think some of the things that I learned when I first came on board, I made a point of meeting individually with each board member, getting their perspective on where the college was and where they thought the weaknesses were, where they thought improvements could be made, where they thought we excelled, and that was good. I found also attending conferences with them and having time with them to learn together and grow together has been helpful.
Creating that relationship.
Trying to create the relationship between them, and it's more effective with some than others, but I think also some board members are more engaged than others, and so they get out of it what they put into it.
Well, and they're busy, right? Because that's a volunteer.
It's a volunteer, totally unpaid job.
Yeah.
People think they're making a salary. They are not. They're just doing this because it's in their heart.
Exactly.
And they want to help.
Lots of liabilities and no compensation at all.
No. And since I have been here, we've had many more workshops than what they had been accustomed to, and so they have been really good about attending and preparing. But interestingly, when I first got here, I have folks that weren't as savvy with technology, and so not only were all of our board materials prepared on paper, but all the correspondence was they didn't do email.
Wow.
Many of them did not do email. So now we've got them kind of into the groove of being able to correspond with me by email. So that has helped a lot.
That is fantastic.
To be able to have quick communication with your board members. I just sent them an email, just a few moments ago, on a matter important to the college, and so it makes me feel really good that I know that I can have quick communications with them.
Because in the other organizations that you should have to report it to one person, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
The chancellor.
The chancellor. It was so it's
Right.
a totally different ballgame.
And then you had a team of other presidents that you worked with,
Exactly. At the same level. That is fantastic. Awesome. Now, what about there's a lot of different opinions in terms of the word and the concept of tenure in universities, and that goes around in colleges, universities, community colleges. In your opinion, how do you, as an administrator, how do you navigate the tenure waters, which is for our audience? We have explained this before, but again, it's basically that job security that faculty obtain after years in the institution and after certain criteria of publishing certain articles. But as an administrator, how do you ensure, or how do you continue being effective when dealing with faculty members who have tenure and have too much job security, or they don't feel that they have that sense of urgency? How do you motivate and how do you keep things moving?
So to talk about tenure, when I first got here, there was some questions about whether tenure would continue.
Okay.
And I did a little informal survey amongst all the 50 community college presidents in the state of Texas to see do they have tenure. And there was only about a third of them that had tenure in some way, shape, or form. Now, I've also worked at a university where tenure was much more highly regarded than I would say it is at a community college, and people really aspired to earn that tenure. So we still have tenure here. So other colleges I talked to said they had some tenure track and some non-tenure track, and some said they just had after 3 good years you might get a 2-year rolling contract sort of thing. Our faculty value tenure, and they want to go for it, and we tightened up the process a little bit when I got here because it really wasn't much of a process.
There wasn't like a rubric or something to
It
follow.
wasn't, no, it just needed help. It just needed some help. So we straightened that up thanks to the chair of that tenure committee, one of our long-term faculty members. So I think they take it very seriously, but honestly, tenured faculty have left the college and tenured faculty have been terminated. So it's a job protection up to a point. And I think the faculty understand that it's not a free ride. It might make them feel a little bit better, and it's a point of pride to get their tenure, right? But they know they still have to have their focus on student success.
They have to perform this.
And yes, and absolutely, the classroom is where they need to be making their biggest positive impact. And so I think they know that, and I think they put a little feather in their cap when they get tenure, but I don't think that they feel that it gives them, the rights.
Like a blank check. To whatever.
I really don't.
Exactly.
And when I interview each one of the faculty as they come up for tenure, and I tell you, I have been nothing but impressed with the folks that have achieved tenure during my tenure, because I'm amazed. I know them as, okay, that's the biology faculty member, or that's the nursing faculty member, but I don't know about all these things that they have done in their past that have brought them to this point. And so by sitting and talking with them, and our vice president of instruction also sits and talks with them, we just learn so much about them and about their passion for what they do, because many of them could be out in the industry or out in the field making a whole lot more money than they make here, but they're devoting their lives to teaching our students, and it makes me real happy.
That is fantastic. What about your other institutions? Do you have that factor too in the tenure?
You know what? I have not had tenure at any other community college. I had sometimes the rolling contract for people. But
they call it a rolling contract.
They call it rolling contract because it means every year you get a 2-year contract. So the next year, when you're up again, if all things go well, you get another 2-year contract. So you always have 2 years.
Exactly.
But I've seen that work too, where if you have a year where you didn't perform well, you can be put back on a 1-year contract, and it's kind of your signal that you better step it up. And I've seen that work out where people didn't step up and they stepped out, and I've seen it where they stepped up, put their A game back on, and they got another 2-year rolling contract.
That's
awesome. But I think in general, a lot of community colleges are not doing so much tenure, at least in my experience.
Exactly.
It may be different in other states, but I've been in Arizona, and Florida, and in New York. Back when I was in New York, we still had tenure then. That's when I got tenured, actually. So
that is fantastic. Now let's talk. Let's focus the conversation on the role that community college are playing in our society, because I think that there's a lot of misperceptions out there still in terms of the potential role that community college may play in children's life and in students' life, especially in those who are economically disadvantaged. What is your take on that? I mean, what is the role that community college play in our society?
Oh my gosh, to me, I know I'm biased, right? But I think that community college is plays a critical role in higher education, because for some students, they may not have any other opportunity than to start at a community college. Especially if it's for finances, because we're so affordable. We make it affordable, and also, for some students that really are not quite college ready yet, they can get their start here at a community college. They may not be able to get entrance into any program that they want, but they can get started and get their developmental education, or we used to call it remedial education. They can get up to speed in their reading, writing, and math, and then get into programs. And so I think about how important that is for disadvantaged students and students of low income. But that's not all of who our students are. We have students who actually, we're their first choice, not their last choice or a second choice.
That's interesting.
They're smart kids. And I'll tell you, I went to a community college right out of high school. I was in the top 3% of my class. I could have gone anywhere.
Exactly.
And I ended up at a nearby community college. They had a program that I wanted, and that I wanted to live in that part of the state. And so I went there, but I could have gone anywhere, and I had scholarships and all that. So we have a lot of students like that too. So it's kind of bifurcated or bimodal population in some instances, because if you look at the programming we offer, some of it is extremely rigorous. Our nursing program is one of the best in the state. It's very difficult to get in, and it's difficult to get out of too. And our process technology program, all of the allied health programs are very, very challenging, as well as our general education courses. So, people, I think that when you talk about misperceptions, I think that is one where people think, oh, it's the last stop for you. You can't get in anywhere else, and so you've got to come to your local community college. And if I could dispel one myth, that would be one that I would love to dispel.
That is fantastic. Yeah, that's a really good point. So you think, in your opinion, that since you have been in several institutions, that attractiveness from students, and we're talking about like the top student who may decide, okay, I wanna go to a community college because of the program. It depends a lot on the way that each institution publicizes their programs, or
I think it has some to do with that. I think it has a lot to do with the parents.
The parents.
Because parents, they want to say their child is going to A&M or UT or an Ivy League school, and so even if they know that the student could get an excellent quality first 2 years at a much more affordable rate at the community college, they may not choose to direct their child in that way. Then on the other hand, we also are seeing the top-notch, brightest students coming through our dual credit program, or our dual enrollment program, and so we're getting, from our area high school feeder schools, we have nearly 2,000 dual enrollment students.
That's fantastic.
And when you look at, and I've shared this data with my board, when you look at the achievement rates of those students, and you break it down, you can break it down on every which way, but by their dual enrollment status, they are high achievers, very, very high achievers. Wow. And when you look even at ethnicity and completion rates by ethnicity by those young people, and you compare them to the overall ethnicity of the college, they surpass. The young people in those dual enrollment programs are doing great.
That is fantastic.
And so I'm thrilled to be the college that gives them their jump start on their education. And you probably know too that we have so many students. We had over 150 students last year that graduated with their associate degree from Alvin Community College before they graduated from high school.
Yes, which is a great opportunity for them, because then when they're gonna go to a 4-year institution, they can get a bachelor in 2 years in the state, which is
That's
awesome.
Right. Or a master's in 4 years.
Or a master's in 4 years. That is fantastic too.
So yeah, we're very proud of that.
Now, what about the? We see that, realistically talking, we have students who may be looking at us right now, and they may be having academic difficulties in high school, and they say, I don't know if I have what it takes to get to a college. One of the things that I have seen is that community college have better system than 4-year institutions in closing those academic gaps, those educational gaps that there's some students, not because they're lazy, but because the system haven't been able to close those gaps in pre-K through 12. What can you tell us about the way that the system that you have in place, the programs that you have in place to help those students who may have struggled in the past in their academics?
So we're doing some really great work in that area. One of the things that we have gone to, as much of the state of Texas has been told to move to, and we're ahead of the game and I'm proud of that, is something called a co-requisite model. So before, when a student came in and tested deficient in math, let's say, we would put them in these developmental lower level math courses that aren't college level, but something more like a high school level math course. We put them in there and say, okay, if you pass that, then you can, maybe take a real college math class. And it wasn't proving to be very successful. And so a more successful model that's been developed is called a co-requisite, where you take that lower level math, or English it could be, at the same time concurrently with the first college level math class. And we have had tremendous success. We piloted it last year, and I want to tell you the success rates were phenomenal, up in that 90% range of students passing those first level college class as opposed in the past where it might have been 40%, 50%.
Wow.
So that's a wonderful thing that we're doing, and we're building it up. I forget what level we're at. We might be at about 50% of our offerings are that way now. We have a target to get to 75%.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we're doing. The other exciting work that we're doing relates to guided pathways or career pathways that you might have heard about. We're trying to help guide the students and have them more early on in their academic career identify their career interests, at least down to something general like business or health or culinary or public service, some one of those pathways, so that they don't wander around, take excess courses that they don't need, that won't transfer. We know there's some of that. Students are going to change their mind, but we're really looking toward these guided pathways to help us just reduce the time to graduation and really help get the student on track earlier. And our team has been working very hard at that. We're using some software that helps direct called Career Coach, so that the students can take an inventory. You know, you've heard of all the interest inventories.
Yes.
But this Career Coach actually, when you're done, it'll say, these are some areas that you'd be good at, and here's the programs that would be good for you to be interested in, to you pursue.
Because that allows the students to have a really good perspective. Honestly, students are sometimes too young to really know, without guidance, what is it that you're going to be successful in, or what is it that you really like or can be. And so this is a really good way to help them out.
Yes, and good advising, having good advising for the students early on is also very helpful.
That is awesome. Now, in terms of your job, what are you consider the most challenging part of your job for any future college president that may be looking at us right now?
Well, a few things, right? Funding for community colleges in the state of Texas is a big deal, and you know we're funded by three main funding streams. We have tuition and fees that students pay, then tax dollars that are on ad valorem taxes on your home that come to us based upon property taxes, yes. And then whatever the state appropriates us, generally speaking, is based upon our contact hours, the number of hours that students are enrolled in. And with community colleges now, we are shifting toward performance-based funding. So about 10, 11, 12% of our funding comes from performance-based. So, we did very well last legislative session because we grew in enrollment. And so we got more money for that. And then our tax base is growing in the area. We're very fortunate. So we did very well. Well, now there will be legislation proposed this session that would limit the amount of increase that the community colleges could get from their tax base. So even if your tax base grew by, let's just say 10%, there may be a cap of only 2.5% that we could actually take from that, or another number might be negotiated.
Yeah.
But that will really tie both hands behind our back, because it would force us to have to raise tuition and fees more. So the very students that we're trying to serve by keeping tuition and fees low, would be impacted and hurt, and then might impact their ability to attend the college. So funding is always an issue for community colleges, and especially if you are in a real rural area, it can be really, really difficult.
No, absolutely, and the reality, Christal, all the research states that there's a direct relationship between funding and performance, and I really hope that legislatures, not only here in Texas but around the nation, understand that, because it's overwhelming. Institutions who get more funding for their students ended up performing better. It's just a fact. So that's okay. So funding is one of the challenges.
Funding is a big challenge. I would say, the continuing changing demographic. We now at Alvin Community College, we are a majority minority college. And speaking of the same thing that you just mentioned about wealthier colleges have students who do better. Well, wealthier students do better. You've seen those same studies that I have, that if you
they have more support systems.
Yes, and they're just going to do better. Well, so we're serving poorer students.
Yeah.
And, we try our best to do as much as we can. We have a wonderful foundation that raises money to give scholarships. But, that's going to continue to be an issue. And, many colleges, you probably have heard, community colleges are looking at developing or have already developed free community college tuition. The Texas Promise, or there's the Dallas Promise, there's the Tennessee Promise.
Yes.
There's different states and different cities are doing this, and it's not really a free tuition. It's an earned scholarship, really, because it's based upon students who in the 9th grade. They and their parents sign a commitment letter that says, I will attend my high school regularly. I will make good grades up to a certain GPA, hold a 2.0 GPA, let's say. I will be good behavior, and I will do community service. And if I do all these things for 4 years, then I can go to the local community college without having to pay tuition and fees. Wow. There's lots of rules all around it. You have to apply for Pell Grant.
Yes.
So you use your Pell Grant first, you use any scholarships first, and then the last dollars to make you whole for your tuition and fees is paid by the college.
That's awesome.
And so I had a board member, myself, and our foundation director recently attended a conference on that in Dallas to learn about how people in Texas are implementing this. And I don't know if we will be able to make it work full-blown, if we can start with something smaller, different segments of the population. I'm not sure, but I think, as inexpensive as our tuition is, it's only $812 a semester for tuition and fees.
But for some of these kids, it's a lot, yeah.
Some people can't afford the $75 per course charge for dual credit courses, dual enrollment courses. So, I think that really is.
That's going to be a really good help. What about the most fun parts of your job?
Oh, wow, fun parts. Well, of course, our favorite days are two graduation days.
Exactly.
When we get to see the students not only walk the stage, but the part that I like too is when we have each student stand, each group stand. If you are a veteran and are getting your degree, if you're the first in your family to earn a degree, if you are, returning back to school after raising a family, and just to see them stand and be so full of pride, and the audience and their parents and the families and friends be so supportive, that's just a wonderful day. But there's lots of other fun days on campus too, because we really are a cultural hub for the community. We have wonderful arts, drama, music program, just a lot of things that draw the community to the campus, many of them free even. So I love walking across the campus and seeing those things going on where students are really engaged and enjoying. But the other part too is that, I love the people with whom I work. Exactly. And the best advice I could give to any incoming president or any higher education administrator is, really surround yourself by the best and brightest. And never feel intimidated to hire people that are way smarter than you, because they're going to help you and support you, and that's the best thing. So the team, because you spend more time with your team here, right, than your family.
Absolutely. That's a true story.
And two, I would say that sometimes things aren't always that fun, but you got to find the fun in it. You got to see the humor in it.
Have that attitude,
positive attitude, and we, you just see things that you think, how the heck? I would never imagine that would have happened.
Things happen.
Things happen, yeah.
Now, to kind of finish it up, Christal, how do you envision the future of community colleges and universities in the United States and in the world in general? With these technology changes and now online degrees becoming so prevalent and almost like virtual classrooms around the world. How do you see the future within the next 5-10 years?
My gosh, when you look even at the number of offerings that all of us have right now that are online, the number of degrees that we have that are totally online, definitely we are growing in that direction, and growing also in what we call the hybrid classes, where some of it is online and some of it is face-to-face, a lot like I think what your program is.
Yes.
So I think you're going to see that continue to increase. I don't know that we'll ever totally replace brick and mortar.
I don't
And
think-
around Texas, it seems like colleges are still building,
Yes.
which is pretty amazing. Of course,
Yeah.
everything's always bigger in Texas.
Yes.
But the interesting part about the virtual reality, we've just ordered and received some of the virtual reality goggles, and I haven't tried them yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. But even looking at things like the nursing simulation labs, those have become very popular, and they have even been approved so that we can cut down the amount of actual hours that we need to be in the clinicals, because the students can make up for the work. They can actually do the practicing on campus in the simulation labs. Now, nothing can replace the actual hands-on patient care,
Absolutely.
but this gives them more practice time, and it's pretty remarkable what they can learn with that technology. But I think another thing that looking at the changes that are happening in community colleges that impact universities as well is now in the state of Texas, as has been in other states that I've worked, community colleges can offer baccalaureate degrees. So
That's awesome.
Alvin Community College probably isn't poised to do that within the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
We have other things we need to wrap up. We have our 10-year accreditation coming up.
Mhm.
We have a major renovation going on the campus over the next 2.5 years. So, but the other area colleges are putting in the proposals to be able to offer baccalaureate degrees. And I know when I was in Florida, we had many baccalaureate degrees, and it's I think it's a good thing, especially if you can really make them a smooth transition so that you do your 2-year degree, your 2-year associate degree, and then transfer into your whatever 4-year degree it is. And generally speaking, they tend to be more occupational type degrees.
Correct.
They're not, British literature or,
Right.
bachelor's in French Revolution or something. They're bachelor's in nursing, they're bachelor's in biotechnology,
Correct.
things like that.
Things that are applicable and you can get a job right
Yeah,
away.
more technical in nature,
Technically.
but require a bachelor's degree. So, yeah, I think that you'll see some more changes along those lines with more of that being able to occur. And even, I thought this was very innovative in where I was in Pima Community College in Arizona. They had a 3+1 degree where the students actually were able to take 3 years at the community college and the 4th year at the university.
Nice.
So giving a little
That's
more
good.
flexibility to the student
That is fantastic.
in certain technical degree areas. So.
That's awesome. Well, Christian, I want to thank you one more time for the time. I know you're super busy.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us today, folks. So remember that we had this interview and many others in the YouTube channel, Antonio Corrales. Let's talk about education with Antonio Corrales. Please help somebody today and see you next time.
Thank you.